Welcome to episode 259 of The Center Ring, presented by Alt. This is going to be the best episode ever. We have a packed Yikes of the Week. It was a busy week for Yikes, so thank you, esports community, for that. And also, it's a big one, folks. Hearts will be broken, tears of joy and sadness will be shed. Anuj and I are bearing the cross that no other podcast or show is brave enough to do. And that is, we are going to rank the esports in an official TCR tier list. S through F. None of this tier 1, tier 2 crap. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty specifics. So hold on to your butts because it is going to be a controversial show. I promise you that. But before we get to any of that fun stuff, let me tell you about the show sponsor with Alt Esports. If you've listened, whether or not here and there, but if you're a new listener, let me tell you something you might not know. That Alt is the best esports apparel company out there. If you are looking for fresh threads, as the kids say, if you're looking for dramatic photos in a desert, wearing a hoodie in the middle of the summer, Alt can provide that for you. But not only that, they can provide it at a reasonable price. You know, you're not looking at these cheap $150 quote-unquote limited edition hoodies. No. Alt is here for the everyday man. The everyday man that wants to look good and feel good. So you can do that at altesports.com. You can pick yourself up E-United summer apparel. You can pick yourself up if it's still available. I know they were going like hotcakes. They had to redo it twice. They had to make more. But the Overwatch League Doodle collection, which looks fire. The 100, look, I'm partial to it, but the 101 Burglars hoodie, you can pick yourself up that. The t-shirts have sold out, so you're too late on that one. But pick yourself up a 101 Burglars hoodie. And you can do all that. Follow them on Twitter at Ultimate and their website, altesports.com.
Hey, this is Anders, and you're listening to TCR.
Okay, so let's start.
Hello, everybody. Hello and welcome back to another edition of The Center Ring, presented by Alt, aka TCR, aka your favorite esports podcast. This is episode 259, coming to you live and or pre-recorded from an undisclosed location. The date, what is the date? August 2nd, 2020. Where has the year gone? And the time, 8:49 p.m. Follow us on Twitter at The Center Ring. Our website, tcr.gg, has all the other links you'll need, including Discord, YouTube, everything there. What else? That's it. I'm your host, Tim. I'll be your captain for this journey into esports, and alongside me, as always, is my best friend, my brown friend. It's Anuj. What's up?
Pumped for the show today, dude. The tier list has been it's been requested. We've talked about it, and it's something that just has to be done.
It's time to finally put our stamp on it. I mean, it really, we got opinions that need to be said, so we'll get into that here. We haven't done a tier list since the Call of Duty franchise tier list as far as branding goes. So, and that was a wild success. A lot of controversy there. Tier lists cause controversy. People love tier lists.
I would be curious to see if our tier list for Call of Duty, how it ranked up with how they performed.
We'll do that for the champs preview, or we can do it after the champs if you'd like.
No, it'd be good to see where they're at. I'm a little disappointed with you. You wouldn't let me add Artifact to the list, so we're not really on talking terms right now. But
that's a callback. First off, you need to be you have to have a player base to be in esports. So listen, not every game a developer makes, despite the developer's a home run. And I think we've learned that. It's almost like when you realize your parents aren't perfect. Like, I feel like everyone who's maybe 25 and up has had that moment in life when you're like, my parents don't know everything in life and maybe not always have the best advice, but up until like that certain point in life, you're like, my parents know everything. That was my moment with Artifact and Valve. Like, oh,
You just realized
you don't.
it's not all gold.
Yeah, like up until that point, Valve had only made wildly fun and successful games, and then Artifact happened. Not so much. They tried hopping on that trading card train, and it just did not go well.
Not at all.
Not
I don't
well.
even think it's still there, is it?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it is still there. From what I understand, though, from the few times that I have looked at it, is that they are going to completely remodel it. Like, yeah, so it's
So
still
free to play, maybe.
it's still on there. It's still $20, but from what I understand, is Valve is planning on just
Revamping
redoing
it.
the whole thing. Yeah, like rethinking their way to do it. And then the sad thing is the game wasn't even that bad. Like, I enjoyed it from a card game standpoint. It was the way they modeled you to get the cards. It's just
Cash grab.
it's like a traditional card game, right? Like, I collect I play Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon cards in real life. I understand. I am conditioned to know that I'm going to get a booster pack, and that's just the way it works, right? You don't have to do that in online format, right? Like, you don't have to. You have the luxury of having other options, and that's what, just the business standpoint did not work out for Artifact. So RIP Artifact. Sadly, you did not make even to be on the list for esports tier
There wasn't
list.
a tier for you, unfortunately.
No, you are on tier Q at that point. So sorry, Artifact, but maybe when you come back, maybe hit us up on that back around. Before we get into the tier list, let's hop into some yikes of the week because we have a handful to get to, and then we'll go over the tier list. We'll give our criteria and everything there. All right. So I will start with my yikes, which I'm kind of flip-floppy. I didn't think I was going to... I don't know where I'm at with this right now. But it came out earlier in the week, and it was always rumored, and then it came out a little bit more solid, that Halo Infinite... First off, it started with Halo Infinite might not have a multiplayer at release. Like, did you hear that rumor?
Yeah.
Like, there was a rumor...
But that was debunked pretty quick.
It was debunked pretty quick. And then it turned into, well, they're not going to have a multiplayer beta. And so then people are freaking out about that, right? Which, that's where I'm on the fence about. I understand where not having a beta looks bad, but I can also point you into 100 other games that have had betas that still ended up bad. So their track
but then you have an opportunity to blame the developer in that sense, right? If a developer is not taking feedback in the beta and their game still launches as a failure, then you sit there and you blame the developer.
And also with Halo Master Chief, the launch for that, the Master Chief collection, that is, was an absolute nightmare. And I'm not talking about for the PC launch, which wasn't the greatest in the sense of the aim, it died very quick with the aim assist issues. But the console launch was awful. I mean, that's why you never saw a Halo 3 or 2 esports scene pick back up when that collection dropped that everyone thought, because it was horrendous at launch for a good while. So that's why everyone's like, hey, you guys sure you don't want to come back and maybe do a beta on this? So there's that. And then they dropped out that it was going to be free to play multiplayer, which I think, again, some people are like, oh, that's not a good sign. How is that not a good sign? I know this is Yikes of the Week, and we don't hype things up in Yikes of the Week, but I thought that was kind of nice.
Free multiplayer was definitely good news, because the player base is going to expand drastically because of it. I mean, just free to play.
Let me tell you what,
games.
Warzone isn't the #1 game of the summer because it's good. Like, being free definitely helped it.
A combination of both, right? There's aspects of it that are making it fun BR, but yes, being free allowed it to skyrocket in numbers, right?
Yeah.
Compared to where it would have been if you had to spend $60 for COD. So yeah, the free to play, good news. The multiplayer beta, to me, that's a little nerve wracking because we've seen the launch on. I'm talking purely on the PC side. There's a lot of things that people are asking to be fixed, right?
Yeah.
And looks like a way of hiding a little bit to me, because there is no point in not doing it. I mean, you only get feedback from these things. You could even limit the pool, right? You
Yeah.
don't if you don't want to make it an open beta like most games do nowadays. Limit your player pool, but still get some sort of feedback from the community. And to not do that, look, like it better be good on launch. That's all I can say, right? Like it better be up to par because people will walk away from a free game. They're not paying that $60 anymore, too. So that's the other half of it is if you don't like it, people move on very quickly.
Yeah, 100%. 100%, especially in today's world, right? Where it's like, okay, this sucks. I'm just going to go right back to the other Warzone, whatever it is at the time, playing it.
One of the other 100 games you have in your library,
Yeah,
usually.
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, go for it, Anuj.
Yeah, my yikes comes from a topic we had last week, and it was revolving the sponsorships with Nemo, the Saudi Arabian organization owned by the Prince Muhammad Al Tim. You should finish that off. But yeah, anyways, good news. Good news for most people out there. Riot terminated their sponsorship.
Listen to the show and terminate it live,
They
actually,
heard it
as we were
live.
recording
They
it.
were in our Twitch chat talking to us about it as we were discussing it. Canceled the partnership right as the show was ending. Tim, Blast Premier, the other silent partner in this whole deal here, has retained their sponsorship as far as we all know. Haven't discussed it, have all of a sudden become the most Twitter active organization I've ever seen.
You're not wrong
Um,
about that.
and just haven't acknowledged it at all. And to me, that's like I mean, I'm shocked that there's not a bigger reaction about it because the way Riot was treated is that they were the devil in that situation, right? Like nobody was not being vocal in that instance. But we still have Blast, one of the three premier tournament organizers in Counter Strike, right? Like you would say they're top three because they actually have a league that's active throughout half the year at least. So
Right.
yeah, haven't acknowledged it, haven't said anything. Still are a partner with them, and for the way it looks to me is they won't address it. They're
No.
just gonna let it
No.
blow
And
over
like you
because the
said,
deal must have been damn good for them.
they are. This is like off season for them, right? So like Twitter should be kind of slow for an off season league. They are blasting tweets like once every 10 minutes, it feels like. They are bearing their partnership tweet with what how do we decide to say it? Nemo?
Nemo,
Nemo?
Nemo. We'll say Nemo.
Nemo? Um like they are
Neom?
just
Was it
bearing it.
Neom? I don't even know what it was. Maybe it was Neom.
Neom is what it was. You
Yeah.
put in Nemo, which is
I
sullying
did.
the name of Finding Nemo, which I definitely don't appreciate. It's Neom. I was like, what? I would know how to say Neom. And
Neom,
we'll
sorry.
stick with Neom. We'll stick with Neom. But yes, I can't help but notice that Blast is just like looking the other way. It's like they're doing that whole thing, like when you look at someone at the same time and your eyes connect and then you quickly look away and act like you were like looking past them.
Yeah.
That is what Blast is doing right now to everyone else in the esports world when they're like, "Hey, Blast," and they're like, "What? Someone say my name? What's going on here?" And I will also say this: I'll call people out too. There were people in the CS community that were much more vocal about Riot partnering up with them than they are right now that Blast hasn't backed off.
100%.
There
that's a
are
little
people
frustrating
in
to
the
see.
CS community that were ready to torch Riot, and with Blast, they're like silent on it just as much.
And what was like, I'll tell you who I was impressed by in this situation was Pansy, because Pansy is a CS:GO caster. She's more of a freelancer than any of these other casters, right? Because most of them are tied to a league, so they're not really freelance anymore at that point. For the most part, they have a secure job, not with Blast in most cases. And she spoke out publicly against it after this whole thing was starting to feel like it was dying down. I know Scoots came out and also has mentioned it on his Twitter, but props to her for stepping up and saying something. But I think there needs to be more of a following here.
Yeah, I mean, get these big talking heads that are in CS that, get these big talking heads that are in CS that, don't hesitate to talk about any other esport or league out there, and, point the blasters at Blast. No
Yep,
pun intended. Also, I love me Pansy. I love me some Pansy.
she's
Fun
great.
fun fact,
She
we had a
really is.
little love relationship one year at DreamHack Austin.
You ran into her?
Uh Not so much. I saw her in a distance. I yelled, "Pansy, I love you," and she said, "I love you too."
There you go.
And at the time I was married, so who knows where that relationship could have gone. But I would like to think we would have worked out. But she went on to better things. I went on to better things, and that's sometimes life. That's sometimes life, kids. You don't always end up with the one that you're meant to.
Yeah, I wish my wife could game like her. That would be awesome.
It would be an interesting dynamic, but someone has to take care of our children, and that's the wives. That's the wives. I have another. Speaking of womanizing women, I have another yikes for you, and
What do
this
we got?
one is so. I don't want to say sweet because taking advantage of women's scenario and stuff is never a happy moment in life, Anuj. But the White Knight himself, the esports simp, who he calls himself that. That's not me being a jerk. He calls himself the simp of esports. Slasher got busted for asking a girl, and you probably know more about this story than I do, but asking a girl for her friend's info to hit on her, and in return, he says that he could then get her a job for the Florida Mayhem. So
That's the yikes part of this whole situation, right? Is offering up like a potential job opportunity for information on another girl. Now, hitting on the girl and all those tweets that came out, I don't care about that. Shoot your shot, dude. Like, good for
yeah,
you. He had the balls to go for it, and that's awesome. Most people don't even do that, right? So that's fine. You shoot your shot whenever you have an opportunity to. No problem there. It's the exchange for like the potential job opportunity that doesn't sit well with most people, I think, right? Again, this is one of those things that kind of feels like it's being um, buried. And I don't think it needs to be a huge story, but it's also not like being talked about as much as I thought it would be,
yeah.
right?
If it
It's
were
kind
like
of just
someone else, I feel like it definitely would get talked about a lot more because
well, because he would have tweeted it out.
yeah, he would have tweeted it out. He would have made jokes. He would have made it seem like they just asked for a blowjob for a number, right? But because it's Slasher and he's the one who breaks the news, it's not going to go anywhere because he's normally the one stoking the fire. Also, it doesn't help that the one person who broke this story was probably like the one person on Twitter that is as skeezy as Slasher, and that's Keemstar. So that doesn't help the fact there. Like when Keemstar is the one going against you, look, Keemstar could be like, "Hey guys, guess what? Hitler is still alive and he wants to do World War III again." And then people would still probably take Hitler's side just because it was Keemstar who broke the news.
Yeah, Keemstar is a piece of work, dude.
That guy's something.
Like I said, the story coming from him, yeah, definitely doesn't do it
Doesn't
justice.
help.
Plus, his fan base probably doesn't give a shit about
No.
Slasher in his situation.
Slasher's
So,
small time compared to the people he
yeah,
normally
like
go after.
yeah, like Keemstar is going after like celebrities in that sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, bad look more than anything.
Yeah, it's a tough
Obviously, I
one.
don't think anything came of it, or in the sense of getting her a job or anything
No,
like that.
and
But
like I said, I don't
um,
really care if anything does come from it. I just anytime that I can point out that Slasher might not be this white knight that he paints himself to be, I'm gonna take just
It
as he
makes your
shot
day.
his shot. I'm gonna shoot my shot, and I'll bring it up on the show.
Hey, Tim, you do you. This is your show, baby. You do what you need to do. Okay.
I appreciate it. All right, what's last yikes? Last like yikes.
Call of Duty, which hasn't really been in yikes in quite some time, I feel. This
What
is
I can
from
remember.
the amateur Call of Duty scene. There's a group out of Indy that was running their AGN. Sorry, I'm trying to remember the American Gaming Network. That's what it is. Was supposed to host a LAN event this weekend in Indy, and obviously, COVID still being a thing, guys. It's still going on. said they were going to cancel it. Activision had reached out. They had told them, hey, we're moving this to an online event. This is going to be an online event. Don't worry. No LAN here. Come to find out, video surfaces from the event center that they organized in the sense of it's at the center that they were hosting the event at. They are saying that they were not involved. Okay, they're saying they did not help out, but there's video of an actual tournament being played. Like you see 5-on-5 COD happening there. Very clearly. The organizer, I think, was also spotted at the event, or one of the guys or whatever that.
So that doesn't bode well.
Yeah, like moderators or something were there and viewing. So just a stupid. Look, don't put esports in a negative light that way, right? Because I feel like media would pick that up and be like, oh, look at these like gamer. It would just become a nonsense 100%. Story because of these idiots doing that. So just an embarrassing look. Easy yikes. Congratulations, American Gaming Network. Welcome to the show.
American anything in esports. What was that other one? The American Esports Association? What was that one?
Probably Federation, Tim.
We had the official federation. We met them at ECS like 3 years ago. And I remember thinking to myself, who are these guys? And then, like, sure enough, a month later, we're just getting blasted by everyone in esports for they tweeted being something. Yeah. I don't know. But, yeah, that's a tough one, That's to put on a LAN event in the midst of COVID and then claim that, no, it's, it wasn't us. So they let themselves into the event center and ran a successful tournament. Not us, though. Yeah. Hey, it can happen. Maybe Champs can go and LAN then if they can do it. Maybe if only American Gaming Network was in charge of Champs, then Champs could still be online. All right. So let's get into it. The moment everyone has been waiting for, the official TCR esports tier list. Now, much like we did with our COD branding tier list, this is going to be a S through F tier. This is not tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, but afterwards we'll probably break it down to say, okay, these brackets would kind of fall under tier 1. The reason I didn't want to just do a generic tier 1, 2, and 3 is because I felt like for a discussion standpoint, like tier 1 and each tier is so broad, right? Like, yeah. Okay, but when you put a microscope onto tier 1, then where do those games fall, right?
Who are the elite of the elite, right? And right. Where do they fall amongst, like, you want to rate them against each other, right? We know there's like a handful that could fall into tier 1, but I want to see how do those stack up against one another.
Yeah. Yep. So that's why I wanted to kind of break it down into more of a S through F tier. The reason this kind of all kickstarted, first off, some listeners suggested it to us after we mentioned that COD was a tier 1 esport a couple episodes ago. We were like, it should probably start treated like one. Also, maybe 2 weeks ago now, we didn't end up talking about it on the show, but the Esports Observer, I believe, they were tweeting out like their first quarter and second quarter tier lists of esports according to the viewership numbers. Now, the reason me and Anuj didn't really talk about it is because in the fine print of this, it said using Twitch viewership. And we were like, well, that's not really fair, because sure enough, what games all fell under the tier 3 category? It just so happened to be every game that is officially not on Twitch for their esports side, like COD and Overwatch and WoW, all the Blizzard stuff that moved over to YouTube just so happened to also be tier 3. So didn't really seem also like a good list.
Live events, and there's so many other factors outside of just the viewing audience on Twitch that we think come into play here for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the factors when I was thinking this up, and we have some, if you're in Twitch chat, feel free, if we're not getting, we have a lot of games to get to. We have like 23 on the list so far, and already some honorable mentions that we thought of after I made the list. If you have some game and you're in Twitch chat, feel free to drop it in chat. If it's not already on the list, we'll get to it. But as far as when my method of thinking with this, Anuj, is some factors that go into hand is developer involvement. Okay, how involved is the developer in the scene? Is it the entire scene? Is it, or do they help out in some way or the other? I think that plays a big part. The overall viewership breakdown, right? Are we seeing 100,000? Are we seeing 20,000? How in the big stages does the game perform?
Including live audience in those scenarios, right?
Yep.
So that plays a part of viewership, not just that on stream, but what you see in attendance
Yeah,
in venues and whatnot.
absolutely. Yep, that matters. Size does matter. And then ultimately, our opinion. You and I are going to discuss this. We did not discuss these ahead of time. So we'll break it down. We'll figure out a way. We will compromise with our opinion and figure out what's the best place to put some of these. So there's that, because I'm sure we disagree on some of them. I mean, there's 23 games, and me and you have a different background in esports. So I'm sure we'll have different thoughts on some of these. And also, I think not as a whole, because currently these are, I think we're going to tier these as current, correct? So like I think legacy does play a part in the rankings. Like, obviously, if your game has a huge history behind it, that will help. But for me, it's not like
it's maybe like a one notch bump type
yeah,
situation. It's not going to be like, oh, well, this game was great in its heyday, but 15 years ago, and no one, like Unreal
yeah.
Tournament,
But
right?
still, yeah,
Like,
Unreal Tournament's a perfect one, and it's not on the list because it just doesn't even have an esports scene. But that's a perfect one, right? Unreal Tournament, Painkiller. Do we remember that game? Painkiller. Great in its time, not an A-list right now. So that's it, I think, for the most part. What we say when we put them in there, it might not stick. We can have the power to adjust it. We put something in A and we want to bump it up to S or B later on, we can do that. So, if we put something somewhere and we decide it, don't freak out. And ultimately know that, you're probably going to get upset with some of these, I'm sure. So, let's get down to it here. Let me pull this up here. All right. So, I have the list in front of me, Anuj. Let me actually get one last thing pulled up on my side here. How did you want to start? Like I said, we have 23 games. We can go about it however we want. That's not a huge deal on however you want to do it.
I think you just pluck. I wouldn't go in the necessarily the order that it's just sitting in. Just kind of pull one from the hat type thing.
Okay.
I don't think there needs to be like I don't want to make it focused where we just do FGC and then we come to FPS and then we go to, you know, MOBAs. I think we should just kind of free flow it a little bit, throw them off the list, and then we can start to stack them and move them around if we think we need to.
All right. All right. So then, let's go with the first one. Do you have the list in front of you?
I do.
All right, let's start. You know what? Let's start with this one. Let's start with Rainbow Six. Rainbow Six in this one particular Siege, because that's just the current one.
That's actually a tough one
That's why I wanted to start.
I'll be honest, because
I thought this was a good one to start.
With Rainbow, there's so many positives to the game, right? That make you want to rate it, I think, incredibly high, right? There's great fan attendance. I think the stream numbers for the big event are fairly good, right? For at least the invitational, like the six invitational and things like that. Like it draws huge numbers there. It has a legacy to it,
Yep.
right? And then we want to talk about developer interaction. This is one of the games that has really been elevated because of the developer in this case. Because this was a game that at one point I felt like was on the brink of suffocating itself and kind of dying out. It felt like it was losing popularity, and they made some massive changes to the game. They listened to the player base, and now here we are. And I think six falls in to me. I mean, I would almost say like B to A tier, somewhere in between there. And maybe we take your thoughts on it and see if we can find a happy median. I don't think it's S tier. I think that I really am reserving that for the elite of the elite,
Yeah,
the best of the best there. But I do think it deserves to be in a upper echelon tier.
I agree. I think for me, the only thing holding it back on the A tier, the only thing holding it back on the A tier is we don't see a lot of hype around the minor tournaments, right? A lot of the hype for Siege and Rainbow in general come from either the finals, right, or the invitational, right?
Yeah.
Like they're champs. That's the only thing that holds me back from putting it in A tier. Maybe it will get bumped up later on when we see what falls with B, right? Because if I'm like, well, it's better than this one, so I guess let's bump it up to A. Because I don't think it deserves to be any lower than B.
Yeah, I'm okay with throwing it in B right now. I do have a feeling as this list goes on, I think they might make their way up.
They might.
But I'm okay with settling them in B to at least start with.
All right. Let's get into then another FPS. Different genre, though. Apex Legend. For me, this is a tough one in the sense of it all depends on when this... Had we done this a year ago, they would have fallen in a completely different category. They had the massive player base, the massive views on Twitch. When they did Twitch Rivals and everything, it was popular, right? It had all the popular streamers wanting to play it. It does have the developer support behind it. Oddly enough, it was like one of the few games that EA decided to truly support when it was all said and done. Part of the issue, though, is that I felt, a thing in life is striking when the iron is hot, and they just waited too long to strike that esports iron. It was like by the time they were ready to really push their esports scene and their league, people have already moved on. Like they waited too long to establish that, yes, we are a competitive esport when it comes to the grand scheme of everything else. Still, a popular game. I still have friends that play it, and I know that the league is still active. Even here with Arlington Esports Stadium down the street from us, they host Apex events all the time. But when comparing it on an esports level, I'm looking at the bottom half. These early ones are tough because you just don't know where the other chips are gonna fall. I would think a D. I would put it in a D.
Yeah, I was thinking CD also.
Yep,
in
and that's
range,
where I was at. It's not the
obviously
worst.
that makes it tough because we put Siege in a B, right? And I think Apex is a steep drop off
Yeah.
from where Rainbow Six is. And I for all the same reasons, I think they waited way too long to develop their esports scene. I still think they lacked in character development, like not enough characters, maps, like everything just felt a little slow in getting updated, and then even when they went to a map, like it wasn't really like universally loved. So they didn't have like a map pool. It was just people like the one other map versus the new one. It's not like they had choices necessarily. And so, yeah, like I just don't feel like it's ever really taken off. There's still a good player base. It's still got a healthy player base. It's not a dead game.
And
And
they
I'm okay
still
with
do big updates, right?
I'm okay with the D rating. Um, Again, this is one of those that can maybe shift a little because it's like a big title early on. And there's other games that I know are also significantly behind, even Apex. And so, yeah, I think a D tier is, it almost feels like we're being a little disrespectful to them there, but
Yeah.
I think they also kind of deserve it in that sense.
Well, and again, and I think the way that's the only fault from the S through F tier system. Like tier 1, 2, and 3, it's like even if you're in the third tier, it's like, okay, well, it's, that doesn't seem bad. An F or an E isn't like the worst. That just probably means you're a tier 3 esport. Like I would think just looking at it, like, and this could change based on where we put things. But like S is like upper echelon. Like S through A, maybe B is tier 1, right? Like SA is tier 1, B, C might be tier 2, and then DE is 3, and then F is like you need help.
You're done.
Like
Yeah.
you're gonna need help. That's maybe how I'm visioning it
I
now.
think that's a good way of putting it.
It could
Because
still change.
they're still broken down into what people would consider the tier system and the way we talk about
Yeah.
esports, right? Tier 1 esport. You kind of hear that term so much, right? So I think that is a good way to look at it. Is like SA, that's your tier 1, BC, tier 2, and everything else kind of can float around in that tier 3 area.
Right. So that's kind of how I envision it. That might change based on how we put some of these games, but we'll see. All right, let's get the next game here. You want to pick one?
Yeah, let's go with this is an interesting one that I saw in here. Let's go with Gears of War.
Gears of War, early one. That's a tough one to pick early, but all right. All right.
I'll tell you where my head's at on this. Okay, so it gets knocked automatically for purely being like a console FPS. I think it limits your ability to be in a top tier, right?
Yeah.
Now let's go beyond that though. That's not the only problem this game has. Is we've got a very small audience. Prize pools are nothing to really brag about. The game feels dated in the sense that not much has changed from Gears of War to Gears of War, right? You have very much the same, which can also be okay if your game is like one of the best. Think a Counter-Strike over 15 years, the game is pretty much the same. Gears to me is going to fall low. I just don't think. I think it's really hanging on by a lifeline, and for that reason, like I'm thinking like F tier. Like you said, if F tier is a game that like, hey, call for help. Like I don't think Gears is that far from really like needing something major to happen. They had a new game come out, and I still don't hear about it. I mean, I don't hear. There was one moment where I heard about the esports scene. I think you and me watched a match together.
We did. We watched, I think, the finals last season. We watched the finals.
Yeah, it was like a couple months back. We stayed up and watched one of the final matches.
And even then, like I remember the viewership numbers not being what you would want to see in a finals. You mentioned the prize pool. I do think they have like $1 million or something for their finals. But the prize pool is so funny in esports because, and that's why that's not really a factor for me when it comes to this, because 2 or 3 years ago, 4 years ago, the prize pool would have meant a lot, right? The prize pool kind of set the bar on how important and how big an event was. Nowadays, man, it seems like any game out there can get $1 million tournament. Any game can throw out a $1 million+ prize pool, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, this is a big deal. So, I don't know if prize pool, no matter what, unless you're like the TI or something, I don't know if you can really brag about your prize pool ever.
Yeah.
No, CDL is 2 mil, and I feel like that's kind of the next.
Obviously, Dota, has their, but like it's just I think Gears of War is barely there. We've seen a lot of orgs pull out. It's on the brink of being irrelevant. I would say they're calling for help, Tim. I'm going to go ahead and give them like an F tier.
So the only reason I would think not F is because their league is at least backed by the devs. So like they at least still care.
Do you think that Apex is just a little bit better than Gears, or do you think Apex is way far and ahead of where Gears is in terms of esports relevancy?
I would almost argue that I don't think if they're ahead of them, they're not that far ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I think E is probably where this settles, is my guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think
into D. I think it's just a really tough sell because I think Apex still has a potential future where I can't say the same for Gears. I really think it's just a game on the brink of being non-existent. Like they'll play it as long as they keep releasing a new one, but there's not going to be like it's never going to get bigger than it is. I don't believe they would really have to drastically change something for it to gain an audience. I think Apex has the ability.
Yeah, now that you put it that way, I do think you're right on that. Like, I don't think Gears is getting bigger anytime soon. Like you said, they recently came out with, what was it, Gears 5? Gears 5 was the latest one? And it was like a blip on the radar, right? And that even came out on the PC. That had a PC release, and it still just didn't even crack the
It
seal.
didn't change anything. That's a
No.
problem, right? Like a new game comes out, you don't feel like anything changed. So we can throw it in E tier because there's probably some that I would agree would fall below this
Okay.
eventually.
Uh,
Um,
mark that. Mark that. That might go to F. We'll see. We'll see. All right, I'll pick one here then. One that might be F. We'll see. Quake.
yeah, like Quake would have to fall into F tier. Like we talk about games calling for help. Qu- Quake needs I mean, it needs the paddles, dude. Like it's dead. It's gasping for air. It's on its last breath, and that's sad. I mean, I think the champion's way of the whole game. I think the game is just broken, right? Like the champion's model for Quake doesn't feel right to me. I think that genre is suffering as a whole. There's so many reasons that the viewership is low. QuakeCon's only big because it's a LAN. We've been there several years in a row. I can tell you that people are not going there to necessarily watch the event. Like 90% of those people that are there are going for the LAN and they're playing games outside of Quake.
Yeah.
Hell, they don't even make that a Quake vomit type environment. Like when you walk in, you would have a hard time knowing, other than looking at the stage, that Quake's even being celebrated there anymore. So for me, that makes it an F tier esport.
100%. I won't argue with you here. And to argue with myself on the Gears point is the Quake League does have Bethesda's support, right? So, and I think though, even with the developers for support for Quake, it's just not there. It's, like you said, everything. I agree. Champions is a failed game. I think they kind of acted on it a little too late. Even at QuakeCon, where it's like the whole thing is named after Quake, you have people walking past the esports side, the stage, right? You have people walking past the stage as these pros are playing. Even like, what was it, last year when the season kicked off, they were only pulling like 1,200 views. Like, it's in a bad state.
They do know how to treat. You know what? I almost want to bump them up to B tier just because of how they treat the press at those events.
Amazing.
Like that's almost worthy of bumping them up 5 or 6
This
tiers.
is not a
because
reflection
of that.
on the company.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Like we
they are great.
appreciate the way you guys treat us. We really, really do. Like that was awesome, the event that they hosted for us. But that was the best part
Yeah.
of the event. And so,
And that's not to
yeah,
say I want it to be an F.
no,
I
no.
want it to be, look, these are the games that we grew up on, right? Unreal, Quake, these arena shooters. I wish it could be higher. It's just the support, it's just not there. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's just not there. What's that one that's coming out that everyone like was hyped for like a week? Diabolical. That's
Yeah.
another one where it's like honorable mention. You just started, F tier. Like, I think if you're going to be an arena shooter, you're instantly starting at the F tier and then working your way up.
You have to prove yourself at this point because the arena shooter model hasn't been successful in so long. I mean, so long. Most gamers 18 or younger couldn't name, an arena shooter style game. I mean, I can't think of one myself beyond the two that we're mentioning here that have even released in a long time. So, yeah, unfortunately, Quake, we don't want you to be an F tier, but it's where you belong right now.
All right. I'll let you pick. We'll swap off picking. I like this. I picked Quake.
Okay.
You pick next.
Let's go with. Ooh, I have two in mind. Let's go with Rocket League.
All right. Rocket League. For me, so when I made the list, so I was kind of thinking of these ahead of time, right? So it's a little cheating. But for me, it has everything. It ticks off the boxes. First off, it does have good viewer numbers on Twitch. It has consistent viewing. I was watching it earlier today, and I think it had like 40 or 50,000 people watching it for their league play. It has developer support almost unlike any other, right? You open up Rocket League, you have pro scene messages and things like that. It's in the game. You can buy pro team skins and things like that. Man, I don't think it's an S tier just because for the games that I think are S tier that haven't been there yet, it's not on that level. But I think Rocket League for me is an A tier.
Yeah, I'm actually right there in agreement with you for even for a couple other reasons that we mentioned earlier with some of these games. Rocket League's going to grow. Rocket League's about to go free to play. And so their audience is about to get bigger than it is now because more people will have their hands on the game. They
Yep.
already do a great job in their events. Like I've enjoyed competitive Rocket League is a great viewer sport. That's one thing that you also have to keep in mind. Is this something that it can stand the test of time? I do believe it can. It's something
100%.
that it's just so easy to watch and yet so complex to play at that level. That makes a great game
Yeah.
for me. It's got the viewership, it's got the prize money, it's got the orgs behind it. So yeah, Rocket League is an A tier for sure. I don't put it in S yet,
Yeah, but
but when we do
give it a
this in
year or two.
2021,
Yeah.
this could potentially be an S tier esport.
Let free to play fully blossom, right? Because like you said, I think Rocket League could easily have a regular appearance on TV.
Yeah,
I could easily see Rocket League making a regular appearance for a weeknight match or something on some type of ESPN channel or whatever, NBC. I could see that happening. So I think it could easily make its way to S tier here, next year or two, possibly. But there's that. I'll pick here. Moisey in chat says I didn't throw in Rainbow Six Vegas 2 for the memes. First off, I don't know what you're talking about by the memes. As a former Rainbow Six Vegas 1 and 2 semi-pro, I take that topic very serious. And if the game's dead at the moment, so that instant.
that doesn't help.
It
Could
doesn't
put
help.
Counter Strike 1.3. Can we throw that on there?
Right. Yeah. This is current. That's a good reminding. This is for current esports scenes. Legacy comes into play a little bit, but historical scenes, we're not dealing with old games here. All right. So, man, we have no double up yet so far. No double up yet. All right. Let's see here.
Hey, this is gonna make it easier as we get deeper into this.
Well, yeah, because this is setting the bar, right? This is setting where
yeah.
things will fall. Let me pick then. Let me pick the first of the leagues, and I'll start with Overwatch. Okay, the Overwatch League, and I put the Overwatch League in there. It's really just overall Overwatch esports, including contenders, if that even does anything to help your decision.
That might be a negative on it. Yeah, I mean,
Yikes.
You want me to start with Overwatch?
Yeah. So I'll pick, and then you go. When you pick,
Okay.
I'll start. That's how we'll do it.
Yeah. So I mean, for Overwatch, I think this is where some of the tiers might come out because Overwatch has a couple of things when we start to compare it to these other games, right? If we're just comparing it, we're comparing them to one another. Well, Overwatch's numbers, albeit are higher than a lot of these games on the list. I think it underperforms in that area of where we expect it to be.
Yeah.
So expectations
Does
in reality,
YouTube give it any leeway on that though? Are you a little forgiving because it switched to YouTube? Because on Twitch it was pulling good numbers.
Yeah, but we're talking about also where they're at now, right?
True,
Like this is where they're at today. Right now, what it has for it is the live events are incredible for Overwatch. Whether it's just a watch party that we go to for Envy, or it's the finals that we went to in Philly and in New York, every time it's been an amazing fan experience for me. I've really enjoyed it. However, Overwatch to me is in a big dilemma here because we know Overwatch 2 is around the corner at some point. Um, I do know for a fact, because we all know, that several prominent pros, have left the scene recently. So it's starting to lose firepower there. And the game itself, the interest is significantly lower today than where it was a year ago, and even more so where it was 2 years ago, and even more so where it was 3 years ago. The interest is dying in the game. I think for me, it fits right in the middle of where we have everything right now, and the one of the few empty spots we have left. But I would put Overwatch a notch below where I think Rainbow Six Siege currently is, and I would put it in the C tier.
See, yeah, and I think that's fair. Looking at if S and A are tier one esports, B and C are tier two, I would think at the moment Overwatch is at least if look, I don't disagree with you enough to argue because I would make it a B. I would still put it in tier two, but you're absolutely right. In the direction that it's going, it doesn't look good. So
I see Rainbow as a game that is on the rise still.
Yeah.
Where I look at Overwatch as a game that's on the decline. And so if I'm going to put them both in tier two, I know there are ways to combat. Oh well, this is why Overwatch is more successful than Rainbow, and obviously we know about the franchising, but I think it's a game on the decline, and so that's why I would just put it one notch below where Rainbow is currently.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, just the negative vibes that surround it, right? You even when you talk in like Overwatch and we're fans of it, like Anuj said, Anuj has hardly ever played Overwatch, but still going to the events, you're like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
But that
I agree. I mean,
there's
like,
so much
I enjoyed
negativity.
Overwatch a lot year one. I played it a ton year one with you guys. My interest died down, but not because I thought it was a crappy game. It's just I had other games I
You're
was
right.
enjoying more that I still enjoy more. But from an esports perspective, that's what this is about. It's not about
Yeah.
me enjoying the game or not liking the game. I just see it as a game on the decline.
Yep.
And
Or
Andy Miller is talking about, hey, if he could go back in time, he would not pay what he paid for a league. He's not the only one that's thinking that. He's the only one saying it, but
no,
they're all
you're
thinking
right.
that.
You're right. And though I think you're absolutely right to put it in the middle because it's on it could be on the decline, or Overwatch 2 comes out and it shoots right back to where it was. So I think in the middle, C is the perfect spot for it. All right, you can go ahead and pick.
Let's go with Dota 2.
All right. Dota 2. Now this is an interesting one because apart from the international, which obviously is one of esports' biggest events of the year, right? Like it pulls in more money, more news stories, everything, right? It's a huge event. Valve kind of shot themselves in the foot when they went away from like the 3 majors a year and the international. I think when they went to these so many tournaments, it kind of hurt them in the sense of, quantity over quality.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like if you have so many, it kind of waters down each one. Whereas before you had little tournaments, but then you had a big one. Little tournaments, big one, little tournaments, international.
You're just waiting for one now.
Exactly. And that's where I find myself. I'm sitting here every year just waiting for the international. And maybe that's an issue when one tournament is so big, the rest don't matter as much. From a fan's perspective, from a news perspective. I don't think, though, that being said, I mean, the international can carry you pretty far on this tier list. I would almost seem like putting it at a B tier is almost disrespectful, just given on how, again, the legacy of the game was so huge. But I just feel like it's trended somewhat downwards, and maybe B is a fair spot. I wouldn't go below B, but I definitely wouldn't go higher than A. It's either an A or B.
Yeah, I'm right there. And I think, again, it feels weird to throw it into B because we know what the international is. We know the live audience is great.
They sell
the
out
viewership
stadiums.
Numbers are great. Good to great. But you're right. Throughout the year, no one's talking about Dota the way we'll talk about some of these other games if we start talking A and S tier, right? And so I do feel like it's bigger than Siege still, but I could see it being just on the top end of that tier, right? Where Siege is maybe on the same line as Dota. Dota kind of squeezes itself a little bit ahead.
Right.
but it still kind of belongs in the same category.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm comfortable with B.
Like if there was A and a half, if we could have
Yeah.
half tiers, it would go right in between
Right
A
there.
and B.
No, I agree. I agree.
All right. Maybe Twitch chat disagrees and they can convince us to make it A, but at the moment, I think we agree. B. Feels weird. Don't get me wrong, because Dota is huge, but just from a yearly, throughout the year, it just seems a little low. All right. My turn? My turn?
Your turn.
All right. Because I want to hear you talk about it. Let's go with WoW. And this is including we can let it
MDI
include
and
both
Arena.
and the race.
Yeah, the MDI.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. This is gonna hurt a little bit because like I love the game so much. I really enjoy WoW even till this day after so many years. But it doesn't belong in the upper echelon, right? Viewership numbers, even from Twitch over to um, YouTube, we talk about like some big events that draw big numbers, but as a whole, like the average viewing experience is very low. Um, it's never been the key focus of Blizzard, right? Because WoW is an MMO first, and these are aspects within that game that have turned into esports, right?
Right.
Arena did not start off as an esport; it was just a fun in-game thing to be able to do, and as it's grown, it's turned itself into an esport. Mythic Pluses are still so new, like it's not even that old of a feature, and it's turned itself into this whole thing. And so I I'm gonna throw it with another Blizzard game. I think to me this falls in that C tier category, but I don't think it's like something that's on the decline. I think it'll always kind of hold its popularity with where it's at. It's just not gonna be the main focus of WoW. Like I mean, even the rating stuff that takes place, not in it's an esport now, right? Like complexity and all these guys, they have orgs that do it, but it's for the game first, and this is a like a spin-off of what's come from it. So um for that reason, I throw it in a C. It's a tier 2 esport. I don't think it's
Yeah.
tier 3 in my eyes.
No, I think you're 100%. And especially getting a chance to go to BlizzCon, that room where they hosted both the MDI races and the arena, you couldn't find a seat, right?
Yeah.
So if you're looking from a in-person experience, insane. Now, of course, we're at BlizzCon, so maybe that's a bit biased opinion because, of course, people there are going to love
Everybody there
it.
is like in love,
Right.
right?
But it's difficult to go against that when it comes to Blizzard games when they can host a 3-day event. Although, be it not just for esports, they all do very well there, though. So yeah, I agree. I think it's C. I don't think where Overwatch, could go lower, could go higher, depending on how the outlook of the future goes. WoW, I think it's like a hard stuck C.
Yeah.
Hard stuck C. All right. Your turn to pick.
I got a fun one for you, Tim, because I would love to know what you say about this game. And it might be, if you're watching on stream, it might give you the answer just looking at the icon. I want to know what you think about Fortnite, Tim.
I mean, look, if we can be honest, because I know we joke all the time that Fortnite's not any sport. It did have the World Cup. It did have one of the most captivating esports event that I think quite possibly in our lifetime when it comes to they brought in the world, right? Like literally it was the World Cup, I think, when it comes to Fortnite. That being said, the developers can't do an update without screwing up their esports scene and pissing off every pro. Even their pros have left it to go play Valorant. I think they still do some weekly tournaments, but no one hears about it. I think it's the esports side of Fortnite. You have literally the most popular game out in the world, and you have one of the biggest messes when it comes to esports. I think F is for Fortnite. It's not an esport. It's not an esport.
I'm gonna agree with you because it's truly not an esport. The developers have no interest
No. This is why, you
in.
know why they do a competitive side? Because of the player base behind it, and they know they'll do it. But they truly do not care.
They don't, and that's the most infuriating part because there's people that would love to play it in a league type of setup, and they've just refused to do it. Um, obviously, COVID hitting this year is not going to allow them to have a World Cup, but again, that's just a celebration of the game is how I look at that, right? I look at the
Yeah.
World Cup now; it's something that ties a lot of money to it, so naturally we say, "Oh, look, it's an esport. Look, there's a prize pool tied to it," but they have no interest in making it a true esport. It's a fun game. It's a game that you can play competitively, but they don't want it to be an esport, and for that reason, I'm okay with F. Like it
Yeah.
can work its way up. It has the ability, right? But they
Yeah.
just don't do enough throughout the year that makes me sit here and be like, "Oh yeah, this is an esport." Like
Yeah.
it's on the list because it's a big game, not because they do something that proves them to be worthy of being an esport.
Yeah. Where the public, looking at the other F tier in Quake, the public has failed Quake. Right? We have failed arena shooters. Epic has failed Fortnite on the competitive side.
Gears at least has a league,
Yeah,
you
they at
know?
least have people behind it that care and try to make it entertaining. It's just the viewers aren't
Isn't
there.
isn't Nate Nanzer there
Yeah,
now? As like
yeah. He
I,
took over the
I,
esports side of Epic, so you would think,
he took a paycheck is what he took because he hasn't done anything. Either they don't listen to him
well,
or
it is Rocket League now too, though. So maybe he just acknowledges the fact that Rocket League is the easiest one to sell, and he also realizes Fortnite is not an esport. That's my explanation on it.
yeah, whatever it is, it's odd because the game had the ability to be a tier one esport. Honestly, they had the player base to be a tier one esport, whether we liked it or not. If they had made a league at the right time,
Yeah.
and let
Well,
all
all
the
the
big
orgs
name
jumped in.
streamers and the orgs that were involved, the celebrities that were involved, you could have had celebrity pro-ams at all these events. Like they really could have made it huge. And honestly, it would have been hard to probably not put it in like an A tier type game had it been done right. The fact that it's been done so poorly, there's no way you could give it a passing grade. Like this is an F tier esport.
You're older than me, so I want you to talk about this game that has probably more legacy on it than any game on this list, and that is StarCraft 2.
That's kind of where it becomes tough because it is a legacy game, right? I mean, it's an active esport. It's still got a great player base for a game that old, you know?
10 years as of like last week.
Yeah, and it's almost like, damn. Like again, this is how Blizzard kills me inside is sitting on IPs for as long as they do. Diablo, Warcraft 3 was a remaster that came out. StarCraft 2, 10 years old. Y- Even WoW, 20, 15, 20 years old, whatever it is now. Um, it's not gonna grow. StarCraft 2 is not getting any bigger. If anything, it's getting smaller. It's becoming more irrelevant in that sense. But an amazing history and what it's done for esports is like undoubtedly is it's like the reason for so many of the esports we have today and the money that's being filtered in. So I'm not going to put it in F for that reason. I think this sits like in an E tier for me though because it's not going anywhere. Like it's still going to have its base. It's still going to be talked about because there's so much history there. But until StarCraft 3 or something comes out, it's going to be really hard for StarCraft 2 to do anything other than what it's doing now. So I would make it an E tier game at the moment for that reason. Again, StarCraft 3, if that came out, promise you, this shit would be easy tier 2 esport. Easy. Okay. No doubt in my mind. This would jump up at least 2 to 3 tiers. But for that reason, it's 10 years old. We are where we are. It's not changing. I think E is probably a comfortable spot for me.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it definitely falls in the tier 3 category. I don't even know how much Blizzard cares about it in the sense of like uh keeping it fresh, right? When it comes to the esports side, we see the same players play in. Very rarely do you see a new face in the StarCraft scene. It still does very well as far as like viewership goes for StarCraft. It doesn't even on their, apart unless it's at like their championship. You rarely see StarCraft ever peak the top 10 on Twitch nowadays. Where I remember even 5 years ago, you saw it more, right? It was one of the top games on Twitch, and now you just don't see it. It's just, look.
It is what it is. It's not bad. It's just, it is.
Thank you, RTSs, for what you have done for esports, because truly, without RTS games, we would not be where we're at right now in esports. Without StarCraft, without Command and Conquer, without Age of Empire, they really kind of started this esports scene becoming mainstream, right? Especially like in Korea with StarCraft. It's just not a sexy genre.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's almost like the arena shooter right now. Although I do think the RTS has still a lot of potential if a new game come out. I don't know if I could say the same for an arena shooter unless it was really like flawless in its making. And RTS I feel like would still appeals to the young and the old. So
see, I don't know if it appeals to the young. I feel
You
like
think
it's
so?
not a sexy game. Kids these days, they look at Fortnite, they look at Warzone, they like to yell and get salty and have the flashes, and RTS just doesn't do that. Like
it's not flashy.
It's
I think
chess versus.
That's the thing is that was almost my point to argue with, is that it's like a game like chess. Like it challenges the mind in a way that I feel like
it's there for certain people for sure.
Yeah.
It's there for certain
That's why
people.
it can appeal to the young and the old, is because it's just the mindset going into that type of game I feel like is different. I want to ask you about this one, Tim, and you can combine them, you can separate them. I don't care how you want to go about this one, but I want to ask you about Smash Brothers. And specifically, I'll say Melee,
All right.
obviously being kind of first and foremost, but you can place both of these right now.
So we have Ultimate and Melee on the list. I was thinking about putting Smash as one, but I felt like that was almost unfair because Melee obviously just has the legacy factor, right? I mean, we've talked about it on the show countless of numbers of times. Go watch the Smash Brothers documentary if you really truly want to know how this game started on the grassroots side. Amazing. It's truly amazing. It's truly a test of time where you have StarCraft, which is a 10-year-old game, and it's not getting any bigger. Melee is a even older game and somehow still is breaking records at EVO when it's in EVO. That's no fault of their own. That's just because EVO's dumb. But it is still breaking records for entry numbers. Like, it's somehow getting more popular with time goes on. They just had that big update, which, I've wanted to talk on the show now for like 3 weeks, but then the whole like Smash pedophile scandals happened and just got away from us. But they just did an update where you can now play online, right? Like I say they as it makes it seem like Nintendo did it, but let's be real. Nintendo's not doing anything. There's now a way to play Melee online almost flawless, Anuj. Almost flawless. Like they're now hosting Melee tournaments online. So it's again, going to get better. So now a lot of these Ultimate Melee guys that were playing Ultimate are like, oh, snap, I can do that. So in that sense, I think for me, Melee, you have the legacy factor, you have the numbers. Maybe an A tier. It might be an A tier because the legacy factor. This is my issue, and this is going to go for all fighting games on the list. Okay? This is my issue with putting fighting games that high. Is because truly, the viewership and the hype does not get picked up until top 8. Like, you have an entire weekend of tournaments that still have good numbers, but the top 8 is what people tune in to see. So I don't know how, maybe that's just it. Maybe that's the nature of the beast. You have the same thing in tennis tournaments, same thing in March Madness. Maybe that's just how tournaments work. So
Yeah,
I
the
don't know.
March Madness might be the one exception to that.
Yeah,
Almost,
okay.
right?
But you get
Where
what
it's
I'm
like,
saying. Like the more you get down to it, the popular it
yeah,
gets.
deeper in you go, the
So
more
maybe
interesting
that's
it
not
gets.
it. So that
that's
being
pretty
said,
common.
I would put Melee at A. I'll put a Melee at A. But to compromise and to show how much I think Legacy and the fandom of Melee will carry it, I put Ultimate in a C. Because truly, I just feel like it is the only reason it's as popular as it is because what Melee has done for it. And I don't think Ultimate is a tier 1 esport.
Well, yeah, and then you also have to think developer support, which is not really there in terms of the esports side
None.
for either game, right? Like even their newest one.
Yeah.
And so, man, I see where you're coming from wanting to put Melee in an A tier. And I'm okay with it being there. I think there's in my mind, I feel like it lacks in certain areas to
Yep.
like be like, oh, this is like the best esport. But you could say it's a tier 1 esport because they have several big events throughout the year. It stays relevant throughout the year.
And it
Melee
sells.
has
Look at the Melee events. I mean, they sell out, big arenas.
There's still big personalities in there. Yeah, like Melee falling into an A tier is fine.
Yeah.
C tier, D tier is really what I was thinking for Ultimate.
Yep.
Um,
But my thing
and
is like with Melee is those pros transcend to other scenes. You bring up Hungry Box, you bring up Mango to people that might not know or like diehard Melee, they'll know who Hungry Box and Mewtwo King and Mango are. That's
yeah,
why I think it
I
deserves
agree.
to be A tier.
Melee can fall into an A tier, and then Ultimate going into. I mean, I would say D personally,
You think it's a
but
tier 3?
Ultimate,
Yeah.
yeah, I think Ultimate only is like popular because Melee is
It's
like in the
there.
sense of like people would move to it because there's more money there for them in certain
It's the
areas,
newer
right?
game.
It's the new game. But once the next game comes out, whenever that is, I don't know. I don't know. I just have a hard time thinking that
All right.
Ultimate is like a big esport right now. I think Melee still very much carries the throne, and Ultimate is just a
We can move it
extension
to
of
D.
that.
I'm okay looking at what else is in C, right? Because I think
That's kind of what I'm doing is looking at what we have in
Overwatch, I
here.
think, is bigger than Ultimate in that sense. So we can certainly do that. All right. So I will go here. And we will get Moisty asks in chat, why no mobile or Madden or FIFA? True story is it only let me upload like a certain number of things. So that's why. But when we get through this list, we'll do honorable mentions. We'll put in Madden, FIFA, some mobile games, things like that. So, but for now, what's on the list? I really only added what's it called? Creme de la creme?
Cream of the okay, yeah, cream of the crop.
Cream of the crop.
Yeah,
Also, I mean, if you really want to talk about it real quick, I feel like Madden and FIFA go in the same tier, and to me, that is tier D. Can we agree?
yeah.
Madden,
that's
FIFA,
fine with
tier
me.
D. They're a sports game. It's very difficult to break through. So let's keep in with that conversation. NBA 2K League.
Yeah, maybe this is where it gets a little bit different because we say it all falls into the same category. But NBA 2K League, with this franchising model that they've done, the acceptance from the NBA as well, right? Like really getting them involved as much as they do. Even we joked about the draft when it happened, but that was actually like a cool way to integrate those worlds because NBA 2K fans are NBA fans, right? Like they go very much hand in hand. I think the developer does a good job of supporting them. And so I can only take it so far because of what it is ultimately. And maybe this is a notch above, like this would be on the par with WoW esports for me. Like there's a following there, there's a fan base there, but it's probably going to always hover around there.
Yeah.
It's not going to really jump up into a tier 2, like a heavy tier 2 hitter. It's always going to be on the bottom part of probably these tier 2 groups that we see. It's never going to be a tier 1 esport, I don't believe. Um, but it's a little bit better than like tier 3.
See, for
Because
me,
they have the franchising model. and it's pretty big. I mean,
See, for me, I feel like, and you're right, it ticks off, but it can only go so far. For me, I guess in retrospect, I would put Madden and FIFA and games like that at E, and then NBA 2K League at D. And that's just because it's never going, it will always just be that neat thing that the NBA does with their game. It will never be like viewed as like a top tier. It's first off, I mean, do we even look at it as an esport in the sense of like when we talk about things on our show? Like not
well, we don't
really.
talk about it because it's not like it doesn't fall under like we know most of our fan base doesn't give a shit about NBA
Right.
2K, like realistically speaking. I'm okay. If we want to throw it in the D category, like looking at the other games
Yeah.
that are in there, it could fall right in line with them. Because I
Yeah.
still think Apex, like now almost looking at this list, I
Might be
kind of almost want to bump Apex up one from like I don't think NBA 2K and Apex are hand in hand. Like to me, Apex is a much more popular game in terms of player base and that genre
right.
is just popular in general. But yeah, if we want to slide in like NBA there as the top of the tier 3 esports, like I understand where you're coming from. I wouldn't argue it.
Yeah. Yeah, that just and like I said, I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think it's when you're a traditional sport game trying to break into the esports world, it's tough. It's tough. Um but I think they do a great job with it though. That being said. All
Another,
right.
another problem these games, kind of sports games, have is like unlike a Call of Duty, it's a yearly release, right? With Call of Duty, you get a very different game
Yeah.
every year. With sports games, you're basically getting 99% of the same game with, oh, the truck stick now does this feature. Like
right.
that's really it.
All right. Your turn.
And I almost wonder if you want to sum these up as a whole because you're our expert here. You know, I'll circle back to them because I also want to know what you think about this game. I want to go with PUBG.
And when I think of this, I almost think more of mobile than anything, right? Like I think more PUBG Mobile because I think that's where that esports side is. That's where they've shifted, right?
Yeah.
You rarely hear anything about traditional PUBG now. I've at least for me, I always hear PUBG Mobile
Yeah.
events.
Yeah.
We've talked about it where in India it's like top game, right? It's their Fortnite. We've even talked to people from India, and I'm not including Anuj and his family on this one, but like other people from India at BlizzCon, and they've said the same thing. They were like, everywhere you go to a store, the cashier's playing PUBG Mobile. Go to the bank, the teller's playing PUBG Mobile. You have a baby, the doctor's playing PUBG Mobile. Like he's like, it is everywhere, PUBG Mobile. Which is nuts. First of all, can't believe it. But that being said, much like traditional sports, I think mobile games in general, they have a ceiling. They
Yeah.
have a ceiling when it comes to this tier list and breaking the esports world. And not to mention, then you throw in the fact that your PUBG, which I know to pretty much everywhere else in the world, but apparently other than India, is not a good thing. Like
Well, the
PUBG is,
PC side has had so many issues.
yeah.
Like it's just they never were able to overcome the
The
hurdle.
game is getting taken over by bots in the sense of like AI players. Like they have to throw in AI bots in there just to fill in rooms. We've had listeners who started playing the game recently, so they're fresh, right? And they're getting teamed up in rooms against pros because there's such a little player base that the top players are getting thrown into rooms with new players just so they can fill in rooms. To me, it's on life support. To me, it's another F tier in my eyes. I want to make it an E tier just to help out our Indian buddies to telling us how popular it was. But for me, it's on life support. To me, it's an F tier.
Yeah, I mean, if it's strictly mobile, I could fight for it being an E tier. Like if we're talking about the PC side being a heavy part of this decision, then yeah, I like to think the PC side you would say easily on life support. However, in the mobile side, it's considered a top tier game, right? It's right up there with the the Clash of Clans and all these Call of Duty mobile. Like it's a very popular mobile game, and I think the money is actually pretty decent, right? The sponsorships are good, and like I said, the player base is there. I would put it above a game like Quake and Fortnite because Fortnite we said doesn't have an esports scene. And if we want to compare Quake's esports scene to PUBG's mobile esports scene,
That's true.
PUBG Mobile would look like the TI in terms of player base, like just the event, right? So I
So
want to
E,
fight for an E
E,
tier,
we can give it E. That's fine. That's
but
fine.
like you said, they're not gonna be able to like
That's
jump
it.
way higher.
It's
Yeah,
your E
that's where they're
tier.
gonna be.
That's it. Be happy if you're a PUBG mobile right now, because that was
If we
fighting
give it
for you.
F tier, I don't ever seeing it being able to jump to E tier. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It could fall down to F at least now if it gets
True.
less,
True.
but we're never going to want to upgrade it because I don't think it'll be more popular than it is necessarily today.
No. No. If I could, just for the sake of my OCD, can you scoot a smidge to your left so you frame your webcam? There we go. Looks beautiful. Just for our Twitch and YouTube viewers.
Oh, I see it over there.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
It's for these browser ones. We're slimmer. We're slim. All right. All right. All right. So my pick here. Let me go with your opinion because you've played this game a lot more than me, and you're just more familiar with it. I think it might be our first, but League of Legends.
Yeah, this to me is like a pretty easy pick because League is really going to check off all the boxes, right? Viewership, prize money, player base, popularity, big tournaments throughout the year, not just waiting on one particular one. But I think this is our first one that definitely belongs in the S tier. It's got developer support. You know, it's really got everything. Um, there's nowhere that League of Legends lacks as an esport right now. You could say, hey, it's maybe it's not gaining popularity or player base as much as it was a couple years ago. Well, no shit, like the game's old, but
Right.
it's so steady and it's at the top tier of its own genre, right? Like it's the best MOBA out there in terms of popularity. The league system is fantastic. The games are very competitive. There's so much interest around League of Legends at all times. The streaming side for even non-pros is huge, right? Like your Tyler ones and people like that. Like it really has everything I think that you would want for an S tier upper echelon esport. And so for me, it's like almost an easy S tier plug.
I 100% agree. I to me that was I think we're only going to have a couple on the S tier, and League I think was always going to be one. I would love to hear someone's argument on why it shouldn't be an S tier. You know, other than the fact that you might not like Riot.
Yeah.
But from an esports side, everything they do is S tier. So I agree with you on that.
So I'm gonna give you one of the big boys here because I want to see now that we've kind of built out this list a little bit where this game truly falls because I know it's been a staple for us as of late, and that's the Call of Duty League.
Yeah, so that's kind of what kicked off this whole conversation. Is the other week we said tier 1. Well, to be correct, we did not say Call of Duty was a tier 1 esport. We said it should be treated like a tier 1 esport because when you start, much like the Overwatch League, when you start charging people 20 million plus to get into your league, your standards shift, right? To have this is kind of a tough one because like my knee-jerk reaction wants to say it's an A tier. It is a tier 1, a top of tier 1 esport. It is Call of Duty of one of the most popular games, especially on console. Like if you own a console, that's the game you're playing every year with your buddies. Easy, hands down. It does have I don't want to say it has developer support, but the developer is behind the league. So it has that going for it a little bit. But that's also kind of a double-edged sword in the sense of their developers really don't support them from a pro standpoint whatsoever. It has the players, it has the legacy, right? You hear Scump, Clayster, Crim6, you know all these guys if you're just a fan of esports. It has these guys have been playing for 5+ years in the scene. You've seen new players come in. It's getting new kids involved. Simp being 18, or 19 probably at this point, but still rookie last year and he's in. It's getting new people. That being said, I think the thing that holds this back from making it an A tier in my eyes is the fact that Activision and at the moment Infinity Ward, right? That's who has Modern Warfare, does such a piss poor job of supporting their own game. They could make this an A tier. Overnight, they could make, that's how close this is to being an A tier in my book, is in one night, you could make a splash screen for when you open the game, you see the league schedule and an advertising for champs. You fix the spawn bug that has been talked about now for almost a month. You update the games. You take control of the GA fiasco that is still happening in both your challengers and pro league. And this could all be fixed and you could be an A tier. But because of it almost seems like a resistance from the developer to support their game, I have to put it a B tier. And that sucks because I really think it's an A tier. But just to almost prove a point to Activision to get your shit together.
I get what you're saying about the developer aspect. I do. But I got to fight for A tier on this one. I'm going again, also looking at our tiers, right? Also looking at what we have laid out here, right?
Yeah.
I think the personalities in Call of Duty are massive. That's a big part of it, right? Like player to fan engagement is huge in Call of Duty because the player base can almost relate to half of these players in the sense of just the way they conduct themselves, right? Like they have that kind of a good they have a good thing going there, I think, with the connection between the fans and the players. It has the legacy. The game itself is like good in the sense like Call of Duty, okay, as a whole, is just so damn popular. Like it's just every year they have a new game and it's so popular. And if the icon that we have on here is Call of Duty League. So I don't know if we're only referencing Modern Warfare, but like as the league has
legacy can come into play.
I think the esports this year to me has proven that it belongs in the A tier at least because it's carried us through COVID for a major part of it.
Yeah.
I do believe that Call of Duty has provided a lot of entertainment across the board this year. Part of that entertainment is the drama that's involved between the developers and the players. That's a piece of it,
right?
But it's provided a lot of entertainment across the board, and I think the viewership is there, the money is there, the personalities are there, the franchising is there. Like it's starting to check more and more boxes, and I think the franchising was almost like the last piece of it. But to see how these teams have been in this franchise model, like I've really enjoyed it, and I'm super hyped for champs around the corner. Maybe that's also a part of my thinking here.
Yeah, it's a good
I would
timing.
fight for it to be like a low tier A. Like I think if we're gonna put Smash in there, like Call of Duty is more popular than Smash Brothers in my eyes. Like it's just a more popular game. Smash belongs there for several reasons, but I think if Smash does, Call of Duty could squeeze its way into like a lower tier 1 grouping now. I might have not said that last year, but I think now it's kind of proven itself with this franchising model also. It's done a lot for the game, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, hell, developer changes next week or next year and it could be completely different. And from what we hear, it will. So I'm fine. Like I said, I'm fine with putting it at A. I wanted to put it at A without even blinking. It's just, I get worked up when it's kind of like there's still
I get
so
what you're saying.
much.
It's been handled poorly in so many areas, but when I start thinking like Call of Duty or Rainbow Six,
this is
Call of Duty to me is a notch ahead. Call of Duty or Dota. Dota's only bigger than Call of Duty for one weekend of the year, essentially. Um, so I think it can fit its way in there. Even Call of Duty in Rocket League. Like I hear more about Call of Duty League than I do Rocket League's games going on throughout the week, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, maybe even Rocket League in that sense. No, I mean, I think Rocket League deserves A. I think it deserves
Rocket League's done enough to at least put itself in that
A.
conversation.
Yeah.
So if Rocket League fell into A, fell into B, I think we would be fine either way.
Yeah.
But I think the way that we have it
Now, I will
grouped,
say
Call
this
of
too.
Duty deserves its A.
I'm bitching about Call of Duty League because of developers. And I truly mean the developers. Like whoever is designing the game and the interface or the advertising, whatever, whoever's job that is to advertise the league within the game. That's where they're dropping the ball at. Because the league in themselves is an S tier. Like, you have never seen a league do more work as far as making them available for us. Like, truly, we could get a player on almost any time we wanted to, I felt like. They make it very easy. They want it to succeed. So I guess with that note, yeah, I'll put in A tier. I'll put in A tier. But just know, Activision, this is not because of you. This is because the players and the league offices themselves are carrying your ass to the A tier. So there's that. I forgot who was even. Did I go or was that you?
That was me that went.
So I'm
So
picking.
you would pick now. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go Valorant. It's a tough one, and I put it on
It is
there.
tough because it's like just so fresh into the scene, but it's got so many pros for it in the sense of pros and pros cons type situation, right? And then pros in the sense the pro scene is already more developed than so many of the pro scenes we talk about on here. It's got developer support. It's got Riot's backing, right? We know there will be a league system, so I'm kind of future forward thinking here. It's got big name pro players that people can recognize, know their names already for so many of the players in this league. We've seen top tier players from other leagues, including Overwatch, switch over, including the number one player in Overwatch. Um, I have a tough time thinking in my head, like I want to give this an A tier, Tim. I really do. Like I want to give it an A tier because it's got all the makings
Right.
for a good esport. I would knock it down to B just for the simple fact is I want to see them put it all together. I want to see something now like I want to see these big TOs get involved and kind of run their own league system before Riot steps in and takes over. So I want to see it develop a little bit more, but there's no way I would drop it below B. I do want to sneak it into A, but I need to see a little bit more before I could be like, okay, it's here.
Yeah, I would think A is a little premature.
Yeah.
Mainly because for all the reasons that we have the games in A. Smash Melee is there because of the legacy. COD League is there because of they kind of proven themselves, right? And then Rocket League, again, they've proven themselves. Games in the A tier are games that have proven themselves. Valorant is in that direction, just a little too early. And, partly is COVID's fault, right? If the whole world could get together for a LAN, I'm sure we'd be singing a different tune. But I agree. I think it's B tier. I will say this too, for all the people talking about Riot saying like, well, they want to wait to see if it can be profitable to do a league if they want to be profitable for the orgs. I think that's cute that you believe it. Riot is not waiting to make a league to see if it's profitable for the orgs. Riot is waiting to make a league till they see it's profitable for Riot. That's what they want.
They're going to come in at a time once everybody else kind of establishes
Yeah.
it and they can just come in and flip a switch and they're kind of good to go.
Yeah.
Won't be too long, but it's right on the verge. I mean, it's a game that we know is going to be big. So I think B is pretty fair for now.
Yep.
I want to see if this one gets you in trouble, Tim, because I know your love and your passion for this game, but I want to see how much of a realist you are at the same time. Halo. And I guess it's talking Halo 5.
Yeah, just Halo in general.
Here. But we can say Halo in general.
Yeah, just Halo in general, because realistically, they host Halo 3 events still. They'll host whatever. So it's almost not fair to judge this game at the moment because let's be real, it's dead. Like Halo 5 is dead, the pro scene is dead at the moment. But that's all by design because obviously we're all waiting for Infinite to come out, right? So
But it was dead a year ago too.
I mean, it's been dead for a while.
Yeah, it's not like Infinite they stopped supporting Halo.
Well,
in
I
the
mean,
sense
really,
of,
realistically though, they did. As soon as they announced and teased Infinite, that Halo scene was like, whoop, bye Halo 5, we're out of here. Like it really, I can't tell you the last time there was really a big Halo tournament. The legacy is there. Everything, I want to make this. This is an S tier in my heart. Halo is an S tier in my heart. Just I want everyone to know that before I say this. But if my money is on the table and I had to speak the truth, at the moment, it's a D tier. I think it's a D. Because and this is why I think it's not an E, because the games that we have in E are dying fan bases with real no hopes of it getting better, right? Apart from StarCraft, if they just magically announce a third one. But with Halo Infinite, that is going to pick back up, right? Like Halo is going to get picked back up.
I'm okay with DT. I was thinking E in my head, to be honest with you. Okay, because the scene is so irrelevant right now.
Right.
And it's on life support with the hopes that Infinite is the oxygen that it needs to stay alive, right? Like we're hoping that Infinite breathes life back into this game. But it is a dead game at the moment. It's
at the moment it is.
Yeah, dead. It's like absolutely dead. And so I'm not going to fight you on it, but like in my heart it's sitting closer to an E. I can see why we're giving it a D because of the potential. Again, that's really the only reason I feel like it could deserve to be up there, because NBA 2K is bigger than Halo.
At the moment,
in terms of the esports, right?
Yes.
Apex, more popular than Halo, is by far. Smash Ultimate, same thing.
Yeah.
Like it's on the lower end of the D spectrum right now, with the potential to rise quickly, and it will. It's going to rise. Is it going to be a tier
because again,
one? That's what we're waiting to see.
Look at when Master Chief Collection came out on Steam. For that brief moment, that 2-3 week window, Halo was back. Halo was
2-3 week window
back. Well, because then that all it took, right?
That's I know. I'm just saying
that's all it took for people.
Short-lived love affair.
Well,
that people
that's just
had,
games
right?
nowadays, right?
So,
it's like, there's a month, but
people swiped right out of excitement on that, and then they realized, oh, I just got catfished.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So
I think
D tier.
I think D tier is fair. I think it's, I think E tier is cruel. I think that's whatever, but
it's a D because of potential.
Of potential and legacy. I could list off a number of Halo pros that people would know.
I know, but we can't ride only on legacy.
No, I know. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. But yeah. I agree with you. That's fine.
D.
Like sitting there is okay.
If we're checking the heartbeat, it's like it is on life support. Yeah. I will say that.
It is.
It's they're
not declaring it dead, but it's not.
You're looking for their next of kin.
Yeah.
you have their next of kin on speed dial if you're a Halo Esports fan, but miracles do happen, and hopefully Infinite is the defibrillators that we need. I believe in you, Halo. Please, for the love of God, don't be an F tier the next time we do this. All right, my turn. Let's go with. I'm curious on your take on these games, and you can pair them together if you want. But Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and we can even throw in honorable mention Tekken. Just the the core FGC.
Well, those core FGC games that we kind of constantly see at the big events, right?
Right.
Again, this to me falls pretty close into where I see Smash Ultimate for a couple of reasons. It's got a core consistent fan base that's not going to go away. It's big enough to at least hold its own at some of these bigger tournaments. Prize pools are decent, but it's not going to grow. And that's a big thing for me. We know what we have in these games. We're at Street Fighter 5. We're at Mortal Kombat whatever. Like we've seen multiple iterations of these games, and we know how these cycles kind of work. And so I would slide it in there into that D tier category because it's kind of hit its peak. It could maybe fight for a C tier slot. Um, but I think both of those genres, when I say I think Overwatch League is bigger than the FGC community. Just looking at kind of the gamut and seeing how the events play out, the franchising model, like there's still more upside there in the
Right.
long run. But it sits right in that CD area for FGC. Look, great fan base. We love them to death. But that is what it is.
Yeah.
It's not getting bigger at this point.
I think FGC in general has a ceiling on this list. And I truly think that ceiling is about C. I think Melee is the outlier, maybe A tier. The more and more we talk, the more and more I think A tier might be too high for Melee. But just know that the legacy is really carrying that, right? Like, and the rabid fan base behind Melee.
Yeah.
Like, it's just that's
Melee is the exception.
Yeah, Melee is the exception to this rule. Let me argue on why I think Street Fighter is C tier. You have the Capcom League, official league ran by the devs. That's actually like a competent league, right? You have legends in that game. Daigo, we just talked about him, turned 39? Sat in your chair. This chair that your butt sweat, you have shared butt sweat with Daigo. So that might be an S tier now that you say that.
Naked in it for that reason most of the time.
They have been featured on ESPN. They've showed their Evo events live on ESPN. They have been featured with E-League, right? They've had TV appearance before. And it's still wildly popular in Japan, even in like the arcade and everything. Like Street Fighter is one of those core FGC games that I think are C tier. That being said, Mortal Kombat, I think, is always going to be a tier below Street Fighter. Whenever you look at these big FGC events, the one of the games that constantly get left off the list after a year or two of it being released is Mortal Kombat. For whatever reason, I think it's because NetherRealm balances the game out of oblivion. Like they do like a balance update almost every. It seems like every time you open the game.
Alien into the game.
Yeah, and they'll they add in fun things that are fun but not necessarily the best for the competitive side. I would put Street Fighter at C tier because I think it is what it is. I don't think it's getting any less popular, but I don't think it's getting any more popular. Mortal Kombat, I could almost put on a D or an E because when it comes out, it's hype, but that hype just dies relatively quick.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with that. I can see where you're coming. I mean, again, the legacy for Street Fighter alone can bump it up a notch, right? I know Mortal Kombat has that same legacy, but Street Fighter hits just a little different.
It's different. And like I said, Street Fighter has had success on the mainstream media. It's an older game for sure.
I'm sorry, sir. Have you not seen the Mortal Kombat movie?
You are correct. There is a Street Fighter movie too.
Yeah,
about as equally as
Hey, Jean-Claude Van Damme, baby, you can't go wrong. If he's in your movie, it's a hit.
There you go.
Yeah, no, I can live with that.
So it's either this, right? So it's either Street Fighter C, Mortal Kombat D, or Street Fighter D, Mortal Kombat E, right? Like that's really what you're looking at, and maybe that's honestly the better way to look.
Now that you say that, like that would be more in line with what I was thinking because I had them both at D.
Okay.
And so if I were to knock one down, then I would go DE.
DE. All right. I'm fine with that or Street Fighter C, but I just don't.
That looks right.
That looks yeah. I think you're right. All right.
So we only got a couple left here.
We got 3 left.
And I want to give you something that's going to give you somewhat of a challenge because I feel like one of these is very obvious. One of them is gonna. I think I'm a little bit more curious to know where you have it, and it's something that you've actually touched on a lot more than I have. So I'm going to ask you about Hearthstone.
So Hearthstone, is by far the most popular trading card game on the PC. It's got a massive player base still. Their Battleground, I think, to me, is fun. From what I know, that's like what a lot of the top streamers for Hearthstone are playing. The scene has died a little bit over the years, but of course, that's just going to happen, right? Your game is old, and everything like that. But with every expansion, it kind of props itself back up. I think it falls in line with most of the Blizzard's game here, in my opinion, and it's a C tier. It is what it is. It's strong. It has the developers backing. It has a solid player base. People like it, right? It pulls in consistent viewer numbers. It's not going to break any records, right? But it's also not going to go anywhere anytime soon either. So to me, it's a solid C tier. It's just I don't see any game. I know Raynar, the Tempo Storm owner, Tempo Storm is developing their own trading card game that is supposed to rival it and everything there. But I think for right now, until something proves out, we've seen a number of trading card games break out into the PC world, including Magic, like the gauntlet of all trading card games. And it's still it's not there to knock off Hearthstone. I think Hearthstone's a solid C.
Yeah, I actually completely agree with that. I think it does fall right in line with the rest of Blizzard's games. It's kind of interesting looking at this, how that's played out. It's at the top of the list of trading card games online, right?
Yeah.
Like it's hard to deny that.
And that's
but
another
there
reason.
is that ceiling there. And it's got just as a loyal following, I believe, as any of these other top tier games. Like people that love Hearthstone truly love the damn game, and it's fun. Like I've played it, I've enjoyed it. I don't play it a ton, but I've dabbled in it a little bit, and I think it's a pretty good game overall. It's hard as a new player to get into, but from an esports side, C tier seems pretty damn fitting. It's funny you mentioned Magic. I would be curious to see if Magic gains in popularity after their MMO releases, because they have an MMO. It's a top-down Diablo-looking style MMO that's coming out, and there's already gameplay footage for it. So I wonder if they somehow incorporate that into it to kind of build itself a little bit, because that's one name that could rival any other in that scene. So, but yeah, for now, throwing it in C, I think that's fitting.
So I'll give you a toss up here with CS:GO. Just CS in general, but obviously CS:GO.
It's a slam dunk. I mean, this is obviously an S tier esport.
You said F?
Between them and S tier esport. Between them and League, it's hard to deny what they've done over the years. The consistency, the fact that you could stay entertained throughout the years, like throughout the year with different big events, right? There's always something to kind of look forward to in Counter-Strike, and that's very difficult to do, to keep people entertained throughout a calendar year with different events that really have no correlation to even one another. The intrigue, the excitement is there. Easy viewership game. The numbers fantastic. The live audience, like literally just like League of Legends. The only difference I think between League and CS:GO is League of Legends has much better developer support in my eyes. I think CS:GO still really lacks in that area and will only be pushed once we see Valorant kind of jump in properly. And then maybe we'll see updates come quickly in CS to where it's not like it needs to be reworked. They just need to energize the normal player base, right? The esports scene will always be popular, I believe. But the general player base needs a reason to be a little bit more excited. And so for that reason, I would say League is maybe just a notch above Counter-Strike overall on the global scale. Also, Counter-Strike hasn't really broken into the Asia scene the way they had hoped to, but it belongs on that S tier without a doubt. It's a top 2 game in the world right now in an esports perspective.
Yeah, and there's no argument. I mean, it is. It has been around for just celebrated its 20th year. Yeah. Right, as a game.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And for the most part has always been on the competitive side. Like even we watched the Counter-Strike documentary. It's like even while in beta, like people were playing it from a competitive standpoint. So it has stood the test of time. It will only continue standing the test of time. And honestly, there's no reason it shouldn't be an S tier. You wish the developers had a little bit more support, but it's not like they don't support it. They're just slow.
Not at the pay. Like there's things that they could do better, right? The
Right.
multiplayer matchmaking, but that's not esports
Yeah.
necessarily. But like the matchmaking system in Counter Strike makes it an F tier. So it's
Right.
stuff like that that would say that does not
The
make that
game isn't perfect, but the esports scene is pretty
pretty
close.
much there. Yeah.
Pretty close.
Tim, we leave the best for last, and I didn't even know this was. I knew this was a thing, but it's not something I've ever watched or followed. I would like to get your expertise as somebody who's big into this world and almost lived this in a real life basis here in Texas. Farming Simulator League.
Now, Farming Simulator is a game that took people on by storm. By storm. And then when they announced that they're doing a league, everyone was like, okay, I'm interested. As a farmer myself, Anuj, I don't know if you knew this weekend, I started my own garden. So I went out there, I put on the boots, I went
What'd you plant?
jalapenos.
Nice, nice.
I'm going to plant some bell peppers.
Love
We
it.
have spinach and squash, some bell sprouts. So
Hook me up with some jalapenos when those bad boys
yeah,
come in.
oh, I will definitely. I'll spread the love. I like I said, I'm a farmer myself, so I appreciate this on a multiple level. That being said, I don't really understand it. I've watched some of it. I've never played the game, but you have developer support. You have a crazy fan base behind it, a loyal fan base behind it. The prize money's there because I think like their one opening tournament was I said I'm gonna correct this because in my brain I know I said this and it's gonna drive me nuts. I'm not planting bell sprouts. I got bell peppers and Brussels sprouts
Yeah.
mixed up. Bell sprout is a Pokemon. I am not planting Pokemon. You didn't correct me on it, but I saw your face when I said it, and I appreciate you being a good friend and just letting it go. But
in my head, I was like, "The hell is that?" Like, what
I
is he?
am not planting Pokemon. I have bell peppers and Brussels sprouts. All right, I go back to my statement. I think for me, it ticks off all the boxes. It's educational, okay? It teaches people to go outside and fend for themselves. I think we're closing out on a high. I think Farming Simulator is an S tier.
Back-to-back S tiers, Tim. Didn't think I'd see the day.
I think that's it. I think that's the only logical answer. When you look at the other S tiers, tell me what does Farming Simulator not have that they don't?
It's you know what? I can't even argue it, Tim. I can't even argue it. Maybe I don't have the energy to, but we'll end it.
That's
we'll
why I
end
saved
on
it for
that
last.
note.
All right, so there you have it. There is your official TCR esports tier list. We have S tier, League of Legends, CSGO, Farming Simulator. A tier, Rocket League, Smash Melee, Call of Duty. B tier, Dota 2, Rainbow Six, Valorant. C tier, Overwatch, WoW, Hearthstone. D tier is Apex Legends, Smash Ultimate, NBA 2K, Halo, and Street Fighter. E tier is Gears, StarCraft, PUBG, Mortal Kombat. And F tier, Quake and Fortnite.
I like this list.
It's a lot more, I won't lie to you, it is a lot more even than what I thought it would be.
A healthy balance here. D tier obviously takes the win in terms of
Which,
most
you
games
know,
being rated there, which
look,
makes sense. It's like
if you make an esports tier and you have more games up on the top, then you did it wrong.
yeah. I mean, like you can only have so many S tier first of all, right? Like League and CS:GO makes sense. We understand that, and then you kind of got to grade off of what they've been able to accomplish. So I like how it's laid out. I really wouldn't move anything around. I thought I would at the end I'd be like, okay, there's gonna be one or two that kind of bother me on where they sit. Um, I'm sure there's more of a case for Apex out there. maybe even Smash Ultimate to maybe go up a tier. But overall, I think it looks healthy to me. Like it looks right. It's funny that I think the most shocking thing is Blizzard kind of having 3 games sitting there in C tier when really they
Right.
have as much potential as anybody else to be a B, A tier kind of game.
Because
So
again, if you're looking at it, so S and A is tier 1, right? And that to me makes sense. B, C would be your tier 2 esports, which, look, I know a lot of people, I know Siege has their very dedicated, loyal fan base. But the reality is apart from maybe a tournament or two a year, you are a tier 2 esport. And that's not to say that's bad. Like, that's Siege has had an incredibly healthy esport lifetime being tier 2. And the fact is, a couple of years ago, you were tier 3, right? So you could easily find your way tier 1 here soon. But, keep on trucking. And there's that. Yeah, like you said.
I do think Valorant moves into the tier 1 by like 2021. Next time we do this list, let's say we hold this closer to maybe 3/4 through the year again. Valorant, I very easily see moving into an A, potentially even S tier. I mean, I know that's high expectations, but it wouldn't surprise me either if they're. I definitely see them being an A tier game by the end of next year. The rest of these, like, they got something to prove. I think Halo is the one other game on here that I could see take a huge rise from where they're at. Some of these are gonna need a little extra work, like StarCraft. It's gonna need a new game. That's a lot of work to do in 1 year to get bumped up. So
Yeah, I think it's going to be easier. Yeah, I honestly, I think Halo is going to be the only one that we see go up from the lower tiers, right? Like you said, Valorant. I could see Apex dropping out if they don't do anything
yeah,
to help that.
Apex might not be on the list next year.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like
They're
there might not be an esport for it if it
they're about one
doesn't
new
rebound
battle
quickly.
royale away from being forgotten. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty solid list. I know Moisty keeps asking in chat about Clash Royale. I've literally never played it, and the only time I've ever seen it at an esports event was DreamHack Dallas. They had a little Clash Royale booth set up, and literally no one was there to watch their pro games or play the demos. So if I had to go off my one example, Branderson, for Clash Royale, even though he is telling me in chat that it's an S tier, I would say it's an F tier. Off of my one real life example that had no one watching it at DreamHack Dallas. Now that's
The thing
probably
is,
wrong,
it's like you
but
got a huge player base, right? The player
yeah,
base is there for a game like that, where the esports scene is something different. I'm curious. I want to ask you about one game we didn't have on this list. Another honorable mention, Tim. Because of COVID, it deserves to be in the conversation, and that's the new, like, the iRacing scene that we've seen. Where do you think that falls on this list, and how much of a bump is it getting because of COVID?
well, I mean, yeah, if you were to ask me about iRacing before COVID, I would say it's a D tier. It's right there with NBA 2K.
Yeah.
It has support from NASCAR. The fans always kind of accepted it, even though it was never that popular. Now with COVID, though, I would honestly say a B tier. I mean, because you have professional drivers in these races. In F1, you have professional drivers who stream on Twitch,
Yeah.
who on a Wednesday are are streaming them playing iRacing, and then on Sunday going and winning races, right? So I think it's a B tier for me.
I think during COVID, it's for sure been a B tier.
Right now, yes.
I think it
right.
settles in C tier when it's all said and
Yeah.
done.
Because I do think it opened up a lot of eyes to it. I mean, I know it's open for me, right?
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
it
Look, I almost want to buy a racing wheel just to mess around with some of these games and like play it. I'm sitting on this ultra wide, like I feel like it would look gorgeous on this setup, and it makes me want to like do that because of what I've seen during COVID. So yeah, I think during COVID it belongs in B. I think it settles in C ultimately
yeah.
as a lower tier 2 esport.
Yeah.
But
It's still great.
yeah, they've done wonders for themselves. So
Still great. So there you have it. That's our tier. It's not set in stone. It can change at any moment. You never know when the next big game's coming around. But right now, I think that's a pretty solid list, if you ask me. So there's that. Anything else on the tier list, Anuj?
No, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm surprised you dug up a lot of games that I didn't know were going to be on here.
Well,
so
and like I said, that we had help from listeners and things like that, so that definitely helped. But I don't see a reason, unless you're just a diehard of some of these games and you're like, that's unbelievable that they're low or too high or things like that. I think we looked at it from a fair standpoint. I don't think any of these we played favorites with.
Yeah.
Because Lord knows if I did, Halo would not be on a D. But hey, here we are. All right, let's get into some e-news. Let me get back to my notes here. All right, so some e-news to wrap up this long-ass show. But hey, we knew that was going to be the case when we had to do a tier list. Tier lists are always long shows. We could almost do them as a separate episode, which, make note, maybe in the future we just do tier list episodes. All right, and Seattle, it also doesn't help, though. You had like 25 games to go through.
Yeah, that definitely bumped up the time there.
CSGO. I don't even know how to say that name.
Bubsky joins Astralis, and you're probably asking, what the hell is going on here? Well, they did release Jugi. He was on loan, not loan, but he was on trial with them. They dropped him, picks up Bubs. This is going to be interesting because he's a player that is like an up-and-coming player. And now, along with him and drawing a blank on the other individual that they just got from Heroic, what's his name, Tim? Help me out here. So S-Tag. They got S-Tag also.
I was going to say
this is like really two very good bench players that are sitting there. So curious to see how they handle it, but good for Bubs getting on that roster.
Yugi was the one who has issues, right? He's banned?
No, that was Jampy.
Jampy. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
You knew it was a J and an E somewhere in there. Okay. So my point does not make sense. All right. Good. So Astralis still keeping in that like 8-man roster. Good news though, CSGO is back because the DreamHack Open starts August 8th with Cologne kicking off on the 18th. So here in just about 2 weeks, we will have Cologne. And in the meantime, we have DreamHack action. I am so ready for CSGO to be back. I don't give a damn that it's separate regions playing.
I'm just ready to watch some Counter-Strike.
NA Counter-Strike tournament? Sign me up. It sounds wonderful. I'm
ready for these rankings to get shuffled around a little bit here. It's tough looking at it. It's like, okay, I want to see a little bit more normalcy. I want to see the big boys get back on top and just ready for some Counter-Strike. New Liquid. Like, there's a lot of fun stuff that we're going to be watching here.
Yep. In Overwatch news, I'll bring this one up here because it's a little bit more Overwatch at the moment, but Raucus decides to retire. He hangs him up from the Overwatch League, of course. Yet again, another poster boy for the league, Anuj. Ruckus, a good friend of mine, shared a meal with him, believe it or not. Had a nice little dinner off the Hudson. And you think I'm making that up. I'm not. I literally had dinner with Ruckus in New York. Super nice guy, super sweet guy. I shit you not. He's either lying to me because he was nice, or he legit remembers my team from Rainbow Six.
I think he's lying.
I think he legit remembers.
Whatever you want to go with.
Because he said, he was like, oh, why, because I was like the only one at the dinner who knew anything. And he was like, oh, man, you know a lot. And I was like, well, I was a semi-pro in Rainbow Six, Vegas 1 and 2. And he's like, oh, I used to play that all the time. What team? And I was like, Operation Mini Hippo. And he's like, I remember you guys. And I was like, oh my God. If you're lying, please don't
just take it. Just take it and run.
So again, though, that's shitty for the Overwatch League because, again, it's another guy that they sent to the talk show circuit. Like, he was another poster boy. So I don't know who they're going to go to now, but...
Super is the last man standing.
Yeah, really. I mean, that's what, 3 out of the World Cup roster is no longer in the league. So, telling times. In Valorant, Fun Plus Phoenix is entering the scene on the EU side.
Signed a full roster. So they're ready to go. They'll be competing in these events here pretty soon. I can't tell you who the players are on that roster, but they did come in with the full roster.
They're there. That's all that matters. They are there. In other news, Mitch Marner joins the Defiant ownership group and what do they call it? Ambassador program. For those who don't know, he plays for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So he's a big time hockey guy and a big time get for the Defiant. So yeah. I don't know if he knows anything about them or if this is more just a business decision to bring in a wildly popular hockey player. He was supposed to be the captain of the team. There's a little hockey news for you. Supposed to be the captain next in line, but then he didn't get it. And a lot of people were pissed off about it. So there's that. But yeah, so now there's that. Good.
That's a good get.
Yeah, good
addition
for Toronto. And then, what's this? AOC?
Yeah, this was regarding the U.S. Army recruiting on Twitch. That went into a vote. It failed, unfortunately. This was not just Republican. All the Republicans voted against it. It was pretty split between the Democratic side. So not enough to garner it. So they are both actually, I think, back live on Twitch. Like the Navy and Army are both live on Twitch.
Yep. And the point of this, for those who don't know, it was there's I guess was it Democrat? I don't know politics, bro. The Democrats, a group of people, were trying to make it to where the Army and military forces cannot recruit you via Twitch. So like we mentioned, like they were showing like the commercials, they were tricking people to get to the website for recruiting purposes and things like that. They tried to nix that. That was denied. And so it's all back to normal now.
I don't care that if they recruit on Twitch. I don't want them to do it with like the fake giveaway stuff.
Fake giveaways and stuff, that seems a bit silly. And I kind of like the Marine stance on like streaming and shit. Have you heard their stance?
Mm-mm.
They said that war is like a serious thing and we shouldn't be trying to have fun with it on Twitch. I'm paraphrasing, but the Marines pretty much said like, we don't have time for that. Like it's not, you don't want to make war look like something fun, right? It's like a real thing. So I respect that. I will also say, if I can just be the Debbie Downer here or whatever, for these people saying like, well, imagine, because this is their argument, is they said, imagine the Army trying to recruit your child playing games. The Army was in my high school trying to recruit me. Like, what are you talking? Like, the Army is in your school trying to recruit you at a young age. So, the military, I should say, was trying to recruit students in my high school during lunch. So, I don't, they had a booth at the Dallas Fuel homestand, right? Like, that's just part of it, guys. Let's, like, chill out. Like, like, that's what they do. They got to recruit
just don't do it in a shady way. I don't care that you're doing
it. Right.
Yeah. But if you're doing it, you're doing it. Like,
because if you're gonna try to use the excuse of our children, let's think of the children. Well then I'm gonna throw that right back at you the next time I see like some sugary snack advertisement on Twitch. Like imagine this snack company trying to sell your kid this treat loaded down with sugar and cancerous things.
Skin gambling.
Yeah. Right. How about if your kid is sitting here watching Twitch all day? Military recruitment is the least thing you should be worried about them seeing. I mean,
like, they're probably watching Simple's fake stream right now.
Right. Like, how about you just worry about Twitch chat and let the military advertisement play for 30 seconds and move on. All right. So there you have it. There is the show, episode 259. It is done. It's in the books. Thank you so much for listening. If you are in chat, thank you. If you listened to the whole thing, skipped around, stuck around for the whole show, love you all the same. Hopefully that tier list sparked a fire, right? If you disagree with us, I would love to hear from you in Discord. So join our Discord. You can find the link on Twitter at the Center Ring. The link is there. If it's dead, slide into the DMs. And
you can yell at us on Twitter if you want to.
I
just want to know what you think.
Let us know. I would love to hear. Love to hear about it. Right. Well, thank you so much for following on Twitch. Appreciate it. We will be back Sunday night. No, today is, oh God, it's going to be a long week because today is Sunday. I thought it was Wednesday. We will be back Sunday night to
Wednesday night.
Wednesday
we'll be back
night.
Wednesday
We will be
night.
back. God, I'm already screwed. We will be back Wednesday to record Thursday's show. So make sure you tune in live on Twitch or check the recording on all podcast outlets. And that's it. For Anuj, I'm Tim. We'll see ya.